Hello, people. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Swastika, and today I will be discussing the current affairs of 2nd July 2020 from the newspaper The Hindu with you. But before I do so, I would request you to please press the subscribe button, that's the red button at the bottom of the video, and I would also request you to watch this video till the end, because if you watch it midway, you watch it halfway, you would just get confused, because there are a lot of facts and a lot of things that are getting added up which would make themselves clear only if you watch the video till the end. So let's begin. Okay, so I have done my master's in political science from JNU. I have done my honors in political science from Delhi University. So let's begin by discussing today's news. Today we would be discussing some short news. There's an editorial on Assam. We would be discussing that. In the op-ed, there are two important articles. We will be going through that. One is on the ban of 59 Chinese apps, and the second is on the foreign direct investment in digital sector. We would also be discussing two schemes. One is Atmanirbhar Bharat, and the other is Accelerate Vigyan, which was there in the PIB and not Hindu. And lastly, we would be discussing one thing on culture, which I saw, which I'm sure is not important, but I'm just putting it out there anyway in case people don't know. So moving on, let's discuss the short news. So Modi has quit the Chinese social media app Vivo. So he installed it and he went on it in 2015 when he visited China in order to connect with the Chinese people. But now, looking at the state of affairs, he has deleted it. The GST revenue has seen a plunge by 41% in the first quarter. So in last year, the GST revenue was 3.14 lakh crore. This year it's 1.86 lakh crore, which is a 41% plunge in the first quarter. That's bad, guys. Lastly, there are two more species of butterflies we have discovered: striped hair streak and elusive prince in Arunachal Pradesh. Moving on. So in the editorial today, this a person named Manoranjan Pegu, who is a trade union activist based in Delhi, has written this beautiful piece on Assam and how the fact that the Assamese government is trying to promulgate a new law to make the language compulsory in all schools, both public and private, is actually infringing upon tribal communities such as the Misings, the Dioras. So this law will not be applicable in Barak Valley and Borderland Council. These are the only two places that are exempt. And where are they? So Barak Valley is um, this this is Barak Valley. This is the niche wala part Assam ka, lower Assam ka part. This is Barak Valley. Borderland Council is this area. This is a part of Upper Assam. Okay. Moving on. So the issue is that Assamese is the dominant language in Brahmaputra Valley, and the nationalists are extremely happy that it is being made compulsory. In fact, they are demanding that even in the exempted areas, this language should be made compulsory. However, doing that would obviously negatively impact communities like Misings, the Dioris, and Rabas, who feel like they're getting marginalized. Also, a politics of fear is being portrayed by saying that the Bengali language is infiltrating Assam, and census data is being portrayed in such a manner that the Assamese nationalists immediately feel threatened when Bengali people start using their language there. So this, in fact, the statistical data which I'm quoting exactly from the newspaper is that the number of Assamese speakers as per the 2011 census comes to 48.38% of the population. In 1971, the percentage of speakers was at 60.89. But it is important to remember that Assamese has always remained the dominant language in Brahmaputra Valley. So this is nothing but politics of fear which is being propagated by the government. Okay, moving on, let's see how the imposition of this forceful imposition of this language how does it impact uh, tribal population, it obviously has a very negative impact and has adverse effects on tribal population because these languages are on a decline. And by promoting Assamese, the marginalization of tribal languages uh, almost catalyzes. It also leads to a forced homogenization. The tribal communities have long since demanded linguistic and territorial protection, yet not a lot has been done for them. Instead, they are increasingly getting marginalized. So they have tried to resist. The official language bill of 1960 which led to the formation of Meghalaya, happened primarily because the Khasi, along with other tribal communities, started to protest, which ultimately led to the formation of Meghalaya. So it's not like they didn't protest, they didn't resist, they did, and that led to the formation of Meghalaya. So what's important here is to remember the official language bill of 1960. Moving on. Moving on, we realize that certain other factors also have shaped and led to even more issues. One is the anti-CAA movement. So the anti-citizenship amendment act movement could have actually been a point of departure in this Assamese nationalism discourse. So, and this could have actually led to the emergence of a new definition of the Assamese indigenous, which would have been inclusive of tribals and other communities, and if it was based on domicile rather than language. But it is also important to remember that at the core of the movement, the CAA bill promoted a fear of infiltration. This could easily scuttle democracy and straitjacket any heterogeneous aspirations that we have. So, the government is in fact manipulating this element of fear by raising linguistic nationalism to weaken the inclusive and anti-hegemonic build-up in the anti-CAA movement in Assam. So, the government is making full use of this fear and is trying to break the anti-CAA movement, the inclusivity that this movement had tried to promote. And the government is also making matters worse by trying to bring in a separate legislation which will make only those who learned Assamese till their matriculation eligible for jobs in Assam. This is very problematic because this definitely leads to alienation of tribes like Misings, Deoris, Rabas, and it limits the definition of aksomia to just the speakers of the language. By bringing in such a law, the state government is seeking to overcome the legitimation crisis that its support to CAA has created. Right. So this is what it was about. In the next editorial, in the op-ed column today, there is an article by Apar Gupta who talked about how to tame the digital dragon. So he is a lawyer and an executive director of Internet Freedom Foundation, and he is saying that the ban of 57 Chinese apps is essentially leading to a rise of questions regarding the legality and the measures impact on democratic norms. So he is beginning the article by talking about something similar that happened in August 2012. So in August 2012, similar measures were taken. Similar measures, by similar measures, I mean the ban of 59 Chinese apps, which includes apps like TikTok, Cam Scanner. Obviously, these apps all belong to China, yet they have different functions and they come from different companies. So we have no idea how the government sort of put it all together into one box. So anyway, he's talking about the history and he's saying that in August 2012, similar measures were taken. But when these measures were taken, They mentioned several grounds such as defense and integrity of India, public order, and even security and privacy of users. The directive was premised on specific recommendations by the Indian Cybercrime Coordination Committee at the Ministry of Home Affairs and reports received by a premier cybersecurity body, CERTIN, and also by debates in the parliament. So it wasn't just something that was passed on by the whims of people in power to us, but rather it was a well thought out decision that bodies such as CERTIN and International Cybercrime Coordination Committee had looked into. So before I move on, I just want to make sure that people know what CERTIN is. So CERTIN, because I've not discussed it anywhere before, so CERTIN is an office within the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. It is the nodal agency to deal with cybersecurity threats like hacking and phishing. It strengthens security related defense in Indian internet domain. Right. And the National Cyber Coordination Center is an operational cybersecurity and e-surveillance agency in India. It is intended to screen communication on metadata and coordinate the intelligence gathering activities of other agencies. Components of the NCC include a cybercrime prevention strategy, cybercrime investigation training, and review of outdated laws. India and US are also working together for to curb the misuse of social media platforms and other such things. So it's so some of the major concerns that have been raised by him regarding the arbitrary ban of 59 web services are the following. First, obviously, is the lack of transparency in website blocking. It was just passed. The document was just passed on from above to below without in complete arbitrariness without a lot of thought going into it. The only publicly available document is the press release, which is very insufficient. The ban has been imposed without any form of pre-decisional hearing. The word China isn't even mentioned in the text of the order, despite the apps coming from different companies and developers. So he further raises an interesting point that I'm just going to read out from the newspaper itself. He raises the point that the principle of legality is inherent to a republic that is governed by laws and not the whims of powerful individuals in high office. It is the hallmark of a democracy that laws are validly enacted and do not violate fundamental rights. To circumvent them to reach a convenient goal would amount to undermining the constitutional framework of India. So he is basically questioning the arbitrariness of the 59 apps that the government has tried to just put in, and he's also raising two more concerns. The first thing he's saying is that connected with the privacy and the data protection where the union government's record has been poor. A watered down version of a data protection bill is pending before a parliamentary committee and awaits enactment. So this is the one of the major concerns he is raising. How do we know that the privacy and the data of the consumer is not being exploited or is in safe hands, right? The second thing is to commence an exploration into whether investments and operational control pose cybersecurity concerns or intersect with sectors of foundational and emerging technologies. So this is also there. Moving on, the last article that I will be discussing is the op-ed, and this is written by Mark Linscott, who is of U.S. Trade, a former assistant U.S. Trade representative. So he just said a very simple thing. I am not going to delve that deep into it because it's pretty simple to understand, and there's not a lot that we have to do. So, what he's saying is that the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development released its World Investment Report, which projected that which projected that foreign direct investment in developing economies would drop by as much as 45%. But there is a silver lining to this, because the digital sector is expected to grow, because we understand that digital services have become quite critical to every 21st century economy. So, quite literally, digital services are filling gaps where national or global emergencies interrupt more traditional modes of commerce. So, this is the silver lining that we have, that despite there being, a drop of 45%, and that's a big drop in Asian economies, we are still expecting the digital sector to grow. So, what is the silver lining, that how can India manipulate this to its benefit? That is the question. So, India is the ideal destination for increased FDI flows in digital sector. We may ask ourselves why. The reason is obvious, because we offer undeniable potential for innovative homegrown startups due to digitized population. So, our population is relatively young, our demographic dividend is young, we are also getting digitized, and hence we can use maximum use of the digital sector. The three key measures that might affect India's growth trajectory in digital services are Personal Data Protection Bill, the e-commerce policy, and the Information Technology Amendment Act. Please remember that in the previous when I was discussing the previous article, this was a concern that came up even then, the Personal Data Protection Bill, because we have a very watered down version of it, and it's just not sufficient, because we don't know how, because consumers don't know how their privacy is being compromised, if their data is being compromised, so on and so forth. Okay. Moving on to the next important thing that I saw. So yesterday only I discussed PMGKY, right? So today in news, we are seeing something almost related to that. So according to the Food Ministry, the scheme to provide free ration to 8 crore migrants under Atmanirbhar package has reached less than 15% of its targeted beneficiaries. This is data that has been collated. The Atmanirbhar package, which was meant to provide free food grains to migrants and those without ration cards, was not extended. So yesterday we saw in the news that Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana was extended till the end of November. We got 9,000 crore surplus to give food grains till November. But on the other hand, the Atma Nirbhar package, which was supposed to provide free food grains to migrants and those without ration cards, was not extended. So what essentially happens in Atmanirbhar package is that the center disburses a certain amount to the states. The states then decide who, when, and where to give the free food grains to. But Andhra Pradesh, Goa, and Telangana have had 0% distribution, right? So this is problematic, because the center is saying that it had been generous in its initial estimate of 8 crores, but it is the state governments who are not distributing the food, so which is why they are, which is why more money is not being sent to the Atmanirbhar package. Okay, moving on. This I found important, and I actually didn't find it in the Hindu. I found this in PIB press, right? So Accelerate Vigyan is a new scientific research mechanism. It is launched by Science and Engineering Research Board, which is a statutory body which comes under Department of Science and Technology. Department of Science and Technology is a department under the Ministry of Science and Technology. So it is launched by SERB, Science and Engineering Research Board. The basic purpose of this Accelerate Vigyan is to strengthen scientific research mechanism. Obviously, I just feel like it's not very difficult to remember this. जहाँ पे भी word accelerate विज्ञान आ गया, वो साइंस से रिलेटेड है, वो साइंस से रिलेटेड है, तो हमें बस ये याद रखना है कि जो statutory body है वो SERP है, and it's an interministerial scheme which gives thrust on encouraging high-end scientific research and preparing scientific manpower. Will initiate and strengthen mechanisms of identifying research potential, mentoring, training, and hands-on workshop on a national scale. Further on, an Abhyas program It is an attempt to boost research and development in the country by enabling and grooming postgraduate and PhD students. So it's for them, and उनकी जो research skills है उनको selected areas में different disciplines में it will attempt to groom them. So it has two components. One component is Karyashala. Karyashala is a our high-end workshops and research internships, which is Vritika. High-end workshops and Vritika. This is especially important for those researchers who have limited opportunities to access such learning capacities. The current call for applications. Right, so this is what we have to remember, these two things. Lastly, this Raja Mandal in has been installing Ganpati idol at its pandal in central Mumbai since 1934. However, this time due to coronavirus, Ganesh Chaturthi has been cancelled, and the Raja Mandal, Lal Bagacha Raja Mandal, is going to have blood donations instead. So this is what is happening, and I'm just saying that I'm not saying you have to remember this. I'm just saying that this is general information that I saw in the newspaper today, and I was like, fine, let's discuss this. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and please subscribe, like, and comment below.